Hey, good morning, everybody. John Sviokla from GAI Insights here. Good morning on the East Coast of the U.S. and the U.S. in general. Here with the team, we have Adam Rappaport, Lucinda Lindy from Ironside, Paul Beyer, Ankaj, and Luda. If you want to follow along with our articles, go to gaiinsights.com/articles. You can do that. Please make any comments. We'll try to cover them in the actual call here. And lots of interesting stuff here. A couple of interesting things from NVIDIA, and as well as some opining on AI adoption as a coordination problem. So we shall see what goes on here. All right, Akash, if you could give us the first article, please.
So thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from NVIDIA, and they have kicked off the next generation of AI with Rubin. They have launched 6 new chips and 1 incredible AI supercomputer.
All right. So what do you think here, Lucinda?
I think this is essential because even though it is still, it may not be available for people to implement until the second quarter, as CoreWeave is going to be doing, this is a really important paradigm shift, because I think a lot of times people before were thinking of, I need a GPU, et cetera. I got to connect it to a CPU and I got to network stuff. This now takes things up to the next system level. And Jensen Huang is always looking for moat and always looking for, a competitive advantage. I do believe this gives it to them, because right now he's like basically giving you a rack scale computer that includes the GPU, the CPU, the networking, the data processing unit, and memory. And it's put together in a way that works well. And also kind of gives NVIDIA more lock-in and moat than what they previously had. And it delivers 4 to 10x inference efficiencies. They also talk about the training inferences. The list of customers that they have endorsing it are actually a lot of people who are doing their own training for models. But if you think about the AI leader in most enterprises, they're not training models, but they are doing inference. So I really focused on what would be the inference gains, which would be 4 to 10x. But it also makes it practical to run continuous reasoning, multi-agent workflows, because of the way that they're handling memory, all bundled in. It actually allows you to do longer context and like more kind of persistent ability to process and look at your data. It also allows on-prem and sovereign inference to be economically realistic again. And it really is just an incredibly important, I think, paradigm shift. I think we'll look back at this and say this is a big difference.
John, you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. I was saying strong case for essential. Thank you, Lucinda. What do you think, Luda?
Yeah, I was between important and essential. Essential, I agree with Lucinda. This is a big move, and it will have a dramatic impact on the models at large, but not yet. And it's not out there. We don't know how it performs. And so I was more cautious and gave it actually important.
All right, we're looking at important. Paul, you're going to say, hey, product, definitely essential.
I mean, let's be clear, this was done at CES, a major thing. It's incredibly impressive on their press release that they have CEOs of Microsoft, Anthropic, OpenAI, Dell, HPE, all back in it. So it just reinforces how NVIDIA is center of the universe. I agree with Lucinda that the 4 to X increase in inference is important, but I had this optional for now to actually see this deployed in hyperscalers and really driving value for the end user. I mean, there's not a choice this doesn't affect any choices that the AI leader is doing, maybe other than an evidence point that total cost of ownership might come down as these things get rolled out.
All right, Adam.
I split the difference. I'd say it's important. It's something to get across, but not necessarily right now. I don't know. I think I think Lucinda makes a really good point about sort of scaling it up. But I think the demand for inference is going to completely wash over them, though. It's like the limitation at this point is physical. It's about how quickly they can manufacture these and bring them to market. And by the time they do, there's going to be so much demand that I don't think a business is going to be able to get one, nonetheless be able to afford one, because it's all locked up in all of those massive contracts. So perhaps I'm a bit cynical, but I don't think this is going to make much difference to an AI leader. With Jevons paradox, though, even as the cost of the inference goes down, they're going to have so many more use cases. It's just going to go up anyway. They can't like forecast less of a budget for AI because more efficiency is coming. Like this is what we would expect every year from NVIDIA, but it is absolutely breathtaking and needs to be looked at.
All right. Yeah, one of the aspirations I have in life is I want Dr. John's paradox, which is stating the obvious in a way that people constantly remember it. Anyway.
Once a year, just once a year.
Oh, gosh, where are you on this one?
John, I was essential on this one. I think every AI leader should know about this announcement. So there are two key factors here. One is what Rubin is bringing in. So Adam is saying that it won't make a difference by the time it comes out, but they are targeting Q2 2026, right? So it's already in production, as Jensen Huang mentioned. So I think we will see its impact a lot more sooner. And it also sort of highlights what's going on in the chip ecosystem. So if you see, the announcement here is that the Rubin has a lot more DRAM, HBM memory on board, which is the reason why it will give better inference rate. So if you have been following the semiconductor space, you might have seen the DRAM prices. They have shot up a lot. Companies who manufacture these, after this announcement from Jensen, some of the share prices increased by around 30%. So I think NVIDIA is positioning itself really well for the inference boom that we will see in this particular year, where they are providing inference now at the chip level, along with this Rubin chip that they are providing. So as Lucinda mentioned, that it's a whole rack now. So it becomes very useful for anyone who is looking to do inference at scale, because this takes away the problem that earlier chips had with relation to context or memory or context engineering, I would say. So important for that reason as well. And it also plays well to its recent acquisition of Grok, right, where it did that because of the inference gains that Grok's chips had. So I think a essential read for any AI leader to understand what is going on. And as we see this increasing, the shortage of this DRAM's HBM memory increasing, along with the power bottleneck, I think this will emerge as another bottleneck for the exponential growth of AI inference.
All right. Yeah. Well, you guys have convinced me. I had it as important, but you guys have convinced me as essential. And back to why it's relevant to the AI today, I agree with you, Adam. You know, it's unlikely you're going to be able to get your hands on one. But in terms of where your architecture is going and how much you rely on the NVIDIA stack and so forth, you know, this really, and that's going to be in the next 24 or 36 months, whether you're, you know, buying the bare metal or, you know, you're using a core weave or something. So, all right, essential it is. Leading off with essential for product announcement. Very bold here. Next.
Again, the next one from NVIDIA. This talks about Alpamayo family of open source AI models for self-driving cars.
Yeah, Alpa Mayo. I keep thinking about dog food and mayonnaise. But anyway, what do you think here, Adam?
So this is another announcement out of CES and NVIDIA, and it's pretty exciting. But basically, they've trained a model that does what Tesla's cars do currently, and made that available in a way that'll really help fast track safe reasoning at what they call level 4 deployment, which is fully self-driving. So people like Jaguar Land Rover, Lucid, Uber, of course. I'm sure you're up in that. I think I'm back. Hopefully.
Yep. I think you're hanging in there.
Reloaded there. Sorry, but it helped them catch up in the race. But it's optional for the AI leader in terms of the product announcements and what's going on at CES.
All right, Lucinda, self-driving miracle here or just optional?
So I am kind of optional, possibly important. I do think that one of the cool things about it is it kind of injects a reasoning layer. And as Adam was saying, it's good for kind of high risk type of decisions where you need to have not only the intelligence and the action, but you want to have something in the middle of it. But it's really good for self-driving cars for sure. I guess if I squint at it, I can say, well, this could also be in certain finance situations where you have irreversible, high stakes actions that need to be done, like certain types of trades, etc. But still, like, no, this isn't really, going to be on the radar screen of most AI leaders because they're not doing these types of things.
All righty. Luda, we're headed for optional in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with optional, but I was really impressed with the release of the data set that has a lot of edge cases. It's some very big number of driving hours that includes those edge cases.
Mm-hmm.
And for those physical environments, this is critical, and they're fully releasing it. So I really feel that this will give the companies experimenting in this space an edge. So it's an important part of this announcement, but overall for an AI leader, it's optional.
All righty, Ankush, optional. What do you think?
I was optional on this one, John. I think a very good open source sort of teacher model for the self-driving car ecosystem, but for an AI leader, optional right now.
Paul?
Definitely optional, but 2 points I want to make. Just note how important NVIDIA is at the center of the AI universe, that they can't even wait to their annual conference, which is later in spring, to do these major announcements here. And the other thing I find really interesting is to watch the trend line of semi-autonomous, autonomous coding versus semi-autonomous driving and fully autonomous driving here. So we're both seeing, robots both in the software and physical side just make tremendous progress on a year-over-year basis here. So it's quite exciting, but this is an optional article.
Yeah, I'm going to give it an optional, but boy, it certainly speaks to the strategic insight and commitment of NVIDIA, right? They just I mean, think about just amazing. They're both a supplier and a competitor, and the whole notion of co-opetition and how they hold on to their moat, their competitive advantage in the context of an incredibly dynamic market. So really have to hats off to.
And John, I think we were talking about, if people haven't read, Jensen was on Joe Rogan and talked about his story, and he had a great part of his story where he and team believe so strongly in CUDA that they pushed it out and it tanked their stock from like 20 billion to 5 billion. But he is willing to push hard into these competitive moats, and he's done it again and again, and it's paid off. So he's an exceptional leader in that sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we did our book on self-made billionaires, which is very out of fashion right now, one of the things you saw is that most organizations, once they lose the founder, don't do anything brave. And you look at Disney, for example, there's nothing Disney does that Walt didn't invent. They're doing it better technology, but there's no like new theme park concept. And I would say the same thing's going to happen with Apple. I think Tim Cook has done a phenomenal job of milking what the ecosystem that Jobs created, but I don't see the next iPhone, and the watch ain't it. Anyway, okay, we still have the leader over at NVIDIA. Next, please. And I know we have to pick up the pace a little.
So the next one comes from Liquid AI, and they have introduced LSM 2.5, their next generation of on-device AI.
Yeah, our friends over at Liquid continue to compete on speeds and feeds here. What do you think, Luda?
Yeah, I love this company. They are offering the LLMs completely on the different framework, different angle that allows them to be very fast. And they are now releasing the next 2.5 release that is quite comprehensive, the base, instruct, vision, and audio models, and also Japanese language focused model. But overall, it's really a better, little comprehensive release. So nothing earth-shattering here. Very focused on the edge, competing with open models from China. So from the positioning point of view, this is a company to watch, but nothing really earth-shattering here. So optional.
All right, Adam.
Yeah, it's incremental improvement. There wasn't really anything that was a breakthrough here, I felt in many ways. It's as you'd expect, sort of in that competitive race, to just sort of get a little more out of the models at a certain size. So optional for me as well.
All righty. Ankash?
Optional, John, but they have made another announcement in CES where they are now working with AMD to bring these models on their chips and then in PCs as well. So that might be interesting, but still to see how that proceeds.
All righty. Paul?
Yeah, no, definitely optional. Kudos to Remy and his CEO and his team for being on stage with the AMD at CES. That's a big deal. I mean, these guys are a natural acquisition candidate. I think they'd be a great pickup for Apple because they get a whole team and get some differentiated content. But this is definitely optional.
Yeah, if I were them, I'm not sure I'd sell to Apple right now, given what Apple's showing. But yes.
John, there's always a price.
Well, there's always a price, but then the question is, like AMD, anyway. I don't see Apple getting out of their own way on this one. All righty. Next. Optional it is. Sorry. Optional. The importance of agent hardware. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. So the next one comes from Phil Schmidt, and it talks about the importance of agent harness in 2026.
Yes. We continue to reinvent things with new names. I love it. Lucinda.
Yeah. So I was really actually optional on this one. I feel like, he has a lot of, he does a great job really describing a lot of the problems. And his analogy, I think the analogy was really good, where the model is the CPU and the context window is the RAM and the agent harness is the operating system and the agent is the application. I really like that. He also talks about, that most agent failures are systems failures, not intelligence failures. And that really differentiation will come from reliability and orchestration in life. But there is not necessarily a concrete architecture nor a way to say about build versus buy, or, it's kind of conceptually correct, but it lacks just actionable guidance for the AI leader.
Yeah, it struck me as great insight on the front end, but then falls off. Anyway, Adam.
It sounds to me like he's talking about a multi-agent framework and evaluation frameworks, but doesn't really talk about them. So it's optional for me as well.
Hey, I had this idea. Too bad I didn't write about it. Ankash.
Optional, John. If he would have included some examples here. So as we are researching for our different research projects, we have come across various examples of tools which are exactly doing what he's suggesting in this blog. So John, we had that briefing with Writer, and a lot of these functionalities that they have suggested, Writer is including now in their tools. So I think from a conceptual perspective, this is a good article to read, but examples would be better for an AI leader.
Yeah, Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's optional, but I think the category is really important here. I mean, for me, multiple agent just means there's multiple AI in there, and orchestration just means they're more coordinated here. And he's doing this whole category as these things are running longer. How are we thinking about governance and quality and everything else? And that's a really important topic. And he's highlighting, that doesn't show up on these breathless debates about these leaderboards. So we need a case study, but an important category, but optional article for today.
All righty, and last but not least, Luda, you've actually built operating systems and stuff. What do you think here?
So this is a conceptual framework. If he framed it as such, I would have rated essential. I think, like you're saying, everybody is doing it already. It's just nobody is coming forward like he's trying to say, hey, guys, this is what we're doing. This is the next step. So conceptually, we've evolved to this step. But this article just it starts it's just not, it's not hard hitting. So that's why, I agree with optional, but this is a concept introduction that everybody is thinking about in the whole industry. So in that sense, it's essential, but not presented well.
All right, great idea. Poor execution. Optional it is. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one comes from Sarah Go, and she talks about how AI adoption is a coordination problem.
All right, Adam, coordination problem or not?
Yeah, look, I rated this important, and I really appreciate this article from Sarah. It's she's talking about why incentives are really what's going to determine adoption, which in some ways is kind of obvious, but she points to some of the challenges and why people don't want to necessarily be the first one to come forward or be the one to really try and get people to work together and take AI adoption to the next level in the organization. I feel like where I sit in sort of the business and working with organizations on adoption of Gen AI solutions, any article that's talking about organizational change management, that's looking at that lens of how do we get organizations to start finding ways to change incentives for their employees around embracing and adopting AI, I think is worthwhile to at least elevate to an important status. She also points to some really interesting examples of where you don't need organizational change management for adoption, like with open evidence and all the doctors that are using that now, and with Harvey for lawyers. So I think there's a few good insights in here that make it worthwhile reading.
All right, we got an important going on here, Lucinda.
Yeah, I think it's a very good snapshot of where we are. I was kind of on the optional important fence. It really talks about how people are using it. People are using AI individually and informally to automate like small parts of work, but the change is real but incremental. The next step to like how do you transform either workflows or processes or reimagine, kind of like John, as you were talking about, how does the factory floor get reimagined when you're not on one central power, but that you have all these different motors, right? Yeah. So but it doesn't necessarily have a real path forward. It does kind of say like here we are in kind of this shadow AI type situation. It's like a midpoint narrative that we're all talking about the diagnosis, and I think that part of the article is very good. But really like how to take it to the next level. Either it isn't there, or the few people that are doing it are probably keeping it quiet.
Okay, Akash.
I was important on this one, John. So all the points that Adam mentioned. So due to those reasons, important on this one.
Paul?
Just as important, but I just to share with the audience. I mean, we've been doing a lot of conversations with companies on secure employee chat rollouts, and it's a non-trivial problem here. We were with an 80,000 person company. They are not rolling out because they can't justify the cost. And we were another one with 10,000, and it's considered an absolute failure because they just sent the email out with using Copilot, and everyone thought it was a joke, and now it's deemed a failure. And I think it's becoming really clear that for the enterprise, you have to roll out training and the real values at the department level. So I actually disagree with the notion that other than awareness, we're going to have a lot of seepage in to company usage, because the sweet spot of company users is confidential data. And I think there's just a subset of employees that will consistently put in confidential data in non-approved products here. So, but I did like the article. I agree with Adam. She did get me thinking, and so important in my view.
All right, yeah, this was absolutely vomitacious for me. This thing, she's stating the obvious without making what the obvious distinction was. She's looking, hey, adopting stuff as an individual is very different than adopting stuff that's a system. And the way you implement system stuff is completely different from the way you implement individual stuff. Duh. And it's poorly said, mostly wrong, and badly written. But other than that, I'm going to make it important because I'm in a democratic mood this morning. So here we go. Important.
Absolutely, John, important. And I understand your reaction, but this is the reality out there, right? So this is what's happening out there. And so for that reason alone, I think she makes a good point. And it's as Paul said, it makes you think, right? So it's a thinking article, and she achieved that.
It made me think she was uninformed. That's what it made me.
Well, right. That's your reaction, but she made you stop and whatever. So that I think important too.
Yeah.
So, Akash, I just want to highlight. So 12 years John taught at Harvard Business School. There's hundreds and hundreds of students that have gone through his classes with that edge on his commentary. So maybe not enough in the whole world.
Anyway, all right. I too will lend my spirit to the detritus of the quality of argument. But here we go. All right. We're going important. Next and last.
Okay, the last one comes from VentureBeat, and it talks about how Brex has bet on less orchestration as it builds an agent mesh for autonomous finance.
John, you must be on mute. Oh, we lost John.
We lost him.
Okay,
you're on
Akash, do you want to introduce it or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Luda.
Okay, so this is a case study of a company that works automating processes and in finance, and it's about expense reimbursement process in this particular case. And so it discusses the progression from first introducing the AI agent and now introducing a mesh of agents. So it's kind of light on how they've done it and what the impact was and whether this is what would happen out there is questionable. So I rated it as optional. But an interesting idea that many people I think are thinking of, that take an agent that's more of a cohesive program, right, and break it into many parts, make experts out of very specific tasks, and then combine them into an orchestration or mesh, they call it. So I think it's optional.
All right, we got an optional here. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think my camera's frozen, but hopefully you can at least hear me okay. Yeah, I'm with you, Luda. There wasn't enough to really have it be considered a solid use case in terms of the details of how they built the solutions. And it's pretty extraordinary when you say they achieved 99% automation. So yeah, I'd love to see a little more about exactly what's going on there. It's breathtaking. It's good to consider, but probably an optional read.
All right, Paul, where are you on?
Optional.
Luda?
Yeah, optional.
Akash?
Full optional, John.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm going to give it an optional as well. I think it's interesting that I think we're in real new territory here in terms of architecture of intelligence, because so many people are inventing or reinventing, terms and so forth. And, I think it's going to be interesting to see, can we get to a really stable architecture for an AI operating system?
I think that one of the tensions in that they bring up here, which is really good, is just the tension between what they call the bitter lesson, which is when you start to really prescriptively, deterministically do things with an LLM. Sometimes that's good because it gives it the structure that it needs, but sometimes it's bad because then you're over constraining it, and then you kind of get like you push here and it bulges out there. Right. So I do feel like that is a good thing to think about in some of the issues that people are dealing with agents and AI.
And Lucinda, I want to highlight your point there. And to me, that's a challenge we have with people. So I say, as you think about, how we tightly manage or loosely manage people, that's a similar thing you just walked through, which is very different than 30 years of deterministic, if-then programming that we've had.
Yeah. And it's not clear to me that the mesh is the solution. I have a feeling it's something else, but just like many of these articles, I can't tell you what it is.
Right. I agree with you there. It's like one of the potential solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is that I think there's a very deep issue And the thing is that the framework, when you take an engineering framework of basically the articulated, the explicit knowledge is available and it's automation, that's just one part of how humans actually solve problems. And so, if you read the deeper work on people like Foucault, for example, who basically talk about the way that we think about the problem is an expression of how power is expressed in the context. Or there's other work by folks like Susan Starr, when you actually create these artifacts, like, well, they created a medical database. There was an infinite number of diseases before they had medical databases. Now the problem in medicine is to figure out, how do I characterize John Sviokla in terms of which disease slots to put him in? Well, the whole way we think about the problem now has changed because of medical databases, right? And they're decisioning systems. So and most of the conversation is simply, it's a bunch of hamsters in a hamster cage, not saying how do we change the hamster cage, right? It's like you're assuming the ontology and the problem description, as well as power, motivation, all kinds of other things. Economic rents, who what's fair for somebody to get out of the thing. And I think AI is hitting those, but then we're approximating those with these new names and I think it's pretty thin analogies. Anyway, one man's opinion. If we go to the tote board, please. And Paul, any announcements?
Biggest announcement tomorrow. We have our ChatGPT free training at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. And second, we continue to have a lot of conversations and engagement with customers on 201, 301 training and ROI justification. So if you're involved in that, let us know. We're happy to trade notes on here, but it's CFOs are really stepping up and asking for the returns, and where they're seeing returns, they're leaning hard into it. And it's a very different world than just having people go and try all these employee chatbots that we saw last year.
All right. Lucinda, thanks so much. Always a pleasure to have you. Adam, Luda, Ankash, Paul, great to see you all. Have a great AI day. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
And today we had one essential, one important, and the rest were optional.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.